2-1 loss to Wimbledon saw the Royals earn themselves a third successive league loss this season. On the pitch, it was a mess that not even the real Wombles could help sort out and clean up, leaving us scratching our heads ahead of 2 very tricky away games that will leave us very, very much adrift at the bottom of the table if we can't get any points out of those whatsoever. Joining me on episode 428 of your Tilehurst End podcast is Ross Webber, and he is a very, very unhappy bunny, aren't you?
An unhappy bunny, yeah, I like that. That makes it sound a little bit more like I'm 5'7", so I'm not gonna hurt anyone, even if I am unhappy, like when I'm running around. But yeah, that takes some of the sting out of it. Let's just say the Overton window is shifted in my brain a little bit.
Well, we've had a few thoughts really over the last couple of days, and let's just say the group chat was not a happy place on Saturday at 5:30. Bad loss, bad performance, bad result, bad season so far, and yes, we can be reminded that it's only 3 games in, but it's still 3 games that we've lost by conceding 2 goals. So let's see what we can dig out and pick out the bones of this third successive league loss. We had a bit of respite, as we said last week, with the Portsmouth win, but we're not firing at all in the league. Huge thanks to the Amazons. Yep. They got a big show coming up in Reading, actually, Ready Pop, which is in September. So we're going to try and get them on to chat about that before that starts. They're not a running festival. They're not playing at home this week, which is a real shame, real surprise to a lot of us who are Amazon fans, as I'm sure to you guys as well. But
are you going to the festival?
No, 4 years old, mate. It's a young person's game, isn't it?
I was just checking. Like, even when I was in the UK, I think I had aged out of that one, and I left when I was 20 or something like that. So Reading Festival's great, though. It just gets more dance music every year. What's even going on? I don't care. I like dance music. It's fine.
I mean, I always look at who's playing, but I couldn't.
I always keep an eye on it, but that's about it. It's my wife who's mad about festivals. So anyway, here's how desperate we are to talk about anything other than Reading Football Club entire start to the season.
Thanks, huge thanks to Valdemar. Valdemar, if you're listening to this, can you lobby Sim to say that both myself and Ross deserve some, this season's shirts?
Oh God,
because he's kind of like, oh, I don't know what to, and we put up, a nice little egg with the help of you and some other sort of slightly smaller sponsors. So if you
crack open that egg. It's a beautiful Fabergé egg. Don't crack open the egg. We're hoarding it.
Just as a reminder, we don't get paid for this, and we never would ask to be, by the way. So
no. We're sitting on a hoard at all times. That's what we get for this podcast. It's a hoard.
Yeah, exactly right. So if you are, if you're listening to this, if you can send him an email, or just a message and just say, do you know what, guys, come on.
He's active over on Bluesky, Voldemar. So another reason to come on over. There you go.
Anyway, enough of our pleading. We hope you get something out of episode 428. All of you, not just Voldemar and Sim, who hopefully is listening as well. We're gonna talk through as much as we can about the game on Saturday after this short break. Right, Ross. Where do we start with this one? Very few people in the ground. I think it's about 13,000, almost 2,000 of those were Wimbledon fans. August always a tricky time of year anyway for attendances. It doesn't really.
People are still on their holidays, aren't they? People are still all around the place. I had the first day of practice yesterday, and do you know, actually, I had a first day of practice yesterday, and one of my kids sends me a picture of a photo of Reading Station. So I was like, oh, well, you're not coming to practice tonight then. But that was
What, he was in Reading?
He was in Reading. He was going on the train from wherever. It's very popular, I guess, to go to the Cotswolds now if you're American and come on over. So he was on the train, I guess, from that way over to London.
Cotswolds is popular with Americans.
They're all off to the Cotswolds at the moment. That's the new hot spot. You see it on the, like the magazines that are when you go past the supermarket at the end. This might just be an American thing, like the Hello magazine. Anyway, moving on.
Well, hot take is that I think the Cotswolds is grossly overrated.
Really? What's your favorite garden of England? Because you don't like Kent either, from what I remember.
I mean, Cornwall's amazing. It's just, by the time you get down there,
that's true.
You could have flown to anywhere in the world, quite literally anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
Cornwall's incredible.
I'm gonna have a think about it as the pod goes on today.
The west coast of Wales is outrageous.
Okay. That
parts of Northern Ireland are just wonderful. Parts of the Republic of Ireland actually are fantastic. I just think the Cotswolds is just a bit overrated. I just don't get it.
Well, look, hey, don't mind, don't put people off bringing their tourism dollars into the area. I guess just tell them to come to Berkshire. That's the way to do it instead. Fantastic. Spend your tourist dollars over here.
Exactly right. Well,
yeah. How do we?
Where do we go? We need to be ruthless, says Noel Hunt. Is that the only issue, Ross?
It's always tough for a manager giving like a post-game interview after they've lost, and especially after they've been on a streak of losses. The one thing he said in this interview I don't know if gave me hope is the right phrase, but like where I had to concede, okay, yeah, you're right, is that he mentioned that when he took over back in December, they also went through a sort of disappointing 3-game losing streak. And I was like, okay, yeah, that's correct. But at that time, I think that it seemed like we were closer to figuring our way out of this. There's kind of a 3-pronged approach to myself with this game, becoming more and more annoyed every time that I sort of watched it back. I've watched this game 3 times. I hated it every time. But
that's more goals than we've scored.
Yeah. And it started from I got home from a wedding at 2:00 in the morning, and I thought, why are Reading so rubbish? And I couldn't get this out of my head. And so I went and watched Lewis Wing, and I watched every single Lewis Wing touch at 2:00 in the morning on Saturday night to try and work out what on earth was going on. And you look at that pass map that he has, and you look at what's available to him when he gets on the ball and everything. That pass map is just a big old U shape, whereby he's going to be able to go around the corner, but a big long ball over the top from sort of out wide on the halfway line or something like that, or sort of delivering the ball back to the center backs or things like that. But delivering the ball into the middle of the pitch, in the half space in the opposition half, just not there at all. And I don't think that's a Lewis Wing thing. Like, I think we know that he can do some really incredible things. He did a really incredible thing in this game. He also, by the way, had at least 2 moments where he threaded a ball from like way out of the box into the box on the ground to a player, who then rewarded him with sicking up all over his feet for the touch, basically, which was frustrating too. But overall, if you're having to deliver that ball that many yards into the box, like, you're going to have trouble like that. There is just no link up play in the middle. So I was watching all of these sort of wing touches and just getting annoyed about the lack of any sort of midfield there. The other thing that annoyed me, then, I watched all the shots that we took. The majority of them were blocked. You might be thinking, what shots? The only ones of note really being, Wing's absolute pounding hit. Obviously, the Garcia miss in the first half. And then I think we got close to tying the game up with Savage right at the end. Those are the only really notable shots. And most of these just come from, like quick one-on-one, like, little bits of skill that somebody make, but like the good ones all come from like any sort of fast break or some like the team being out of the way already. And just in terms of generating some chances from nothing, I guess, or from like possession or whatever, it's just not there right now. Last thing I'll say, just to tie this all together, and this also related to when I was watching Wing and all of his touches, but the last thing I looked at was the report from the game afterwards on Y Scout, and just gives you a whole bunch of really interesting things. The average positions, I just mentioned this to you off air as well, but the average positions of Wimbledon, it looks like the team sheet that they named. They named a 3-4-1-2, I think, and it basically looks like that. Reading's is an absolute mess. If you gave it to someone and you told them like what formation are they playing? I don't think they could tell you, because it's all over the place. And some of that is formed by game state, but there were just players in like weird different lines and things like that. And it speaks to me of individuals trying things to salvage a play or something like that, rather than there being a coherent structure necessarily. And then the stat I kind of picked out that sort of spoke to me about that was the progressive pass accuracy for Reading. It was 10% lower than Wimbledon's. Wimbledon were hoofing the ball forward in a lot of cases and not doing nothing that, dynamic on the ground, and they still had a higher progressive pass accuracy than Reading. And it just speaks to a very disorganized midfield that doesn't know where it's supposed to be, and thus is difficult to pass into. With Sellers, and maybe even not with Sellers, but just with a better attacking manager right now, I think would be attacking between the lines and trying to find players between the lines. And instead, what we're doing is we're attacking stacked lines directly with players, on that back line, with 3 players often standing up against a back 5, out of possession. And it's just not working, like maybe there's this idea that with a player who would win more aerial attacking duels, we could maybe, do a little bit better than that. We actually did better at winning attacking duels than Wimbledon did on Saturday. So it's just, I don't think it's going to get so much better at winning those kinds of duels. I don't think it's the personnel. I think right now the midfield is really struggling. So yeah, frustrated in lots of ways from Saturday.
There didn't seem to be any cohesion at all between the midfield and the forward line. So, he made changes. Obviously, Long Calvin came in up top. The big
and probably deserved to, after his performance against Portsmouth as well.
We talk about Ahmed separately, I think. Garcia, there were changes that were made. Obviously, Fraser came in as well, which I think raised a few eyebrows in terms of the kind of game plan that we were likely to see, when that news came out sort of earlier on in the afternoon before the game. But there is very little way of dressing this up at the moment in terms of the forward situation. There was no real sense of getting on the ball and trying to control the game. And, afterwards, and it might have been taken out of context. I didn't watch the interview, the video that the club put out, but he said that it was a second ball game. Well, it wasn't really, because that speaks more about how Wimbledon was setting it rather than what we were doing at home. And, it's absolutely farcical to say that the game against Wimbledon was a must win in what was the 3rd game of the season in August. But we needed a positive result to just lift things a little bit, because as we know as a fan base, like these things affect over time. And we'll talk a little bit about the ownership and where that is. I mean, we thought we were going to be free of that, but clearly we're not. So we have to kind of address some of that stuff. But the performance on the pitch was really, really concerning. And I don't think you can say, or I couldn't say, that this was due to a lack of effort from the players or a lack of willingness to want to do well. There was an awful lot of running in that team. You look at Savage, you look at Dan Kay, who was up and down. Garcia did an awful lot. Ahmed was trying to get on the ball as much as he could from that back line. But there is no discernible link at the moment between goalkeeper and defence and midfield and the front 3 at all. There was absolutely zero cohesion. We had, Phil on last week, and he talked about the cohesiveness within the group in terms of personalities. But on the pitch, I feel we should have been set up very, very differently to what we were on Saturday. Playing Fraser and Savage is a madness. It really is, because you're looking at Fraser and going, can you just be the conduit between getting a ball forward? There was a point in the second half where Lewis Wing hit the ball from about 30 yards out. It nearly hit me. And normally I'd be like, all right, mate. But actually, I was like, I get it. You just fed up of running. You're fed up of trying to look for that Beckham pass. Like, just see what happens. And obviously that's what his goal came from, in terms of him just lathering it.
Yeah,
but
right. You're frustrated.
There is 100%. And you could feel it in the stadium. You could feel everybody around. We had a little bit of a shot in the arm when we scored in the 87th minute. but there was nothing there. Wimbledon just went, I was going to shut up shop, and credit to them.
Well, I mean, it's not a sustainable way to score goals, is it, though? Like shooting from 40 yards. Like, I mean, I know we know that Lewis Wing can sustainably hit long-range goals. He will probably hit at least 5 of those this year, right? But 5 goals does not a season make. And so you can't, rely on that kind of thing happening. And again, I mean, like, we almost got a draw in this game because I think that Derek Williams, when he came on, by the way, was I thought he looked like he had something about him, and knocked down, I'm not sure how much he knew about it, but he knocked down the ball nicely for Savage to hit. And if that ball is either side, then that's in the back of the net. I won't knock Savage too much there because he's hit it really sweetly with a ball that's
a great save from the keeper. It's a wonderful save from the keeper.
It's a little close to the keeper, but it's a good hit regardless. But the problem is not the hit from Savage. The problem is that that's basically the only uncontested shot in the box that we created all day, other than the Andre Garcia thing. And I think there's, that's where the striker thing becomes a little bit more interesting to me, because I think in that situation with that early chance, and just to clarify, I'm talking about where Daniel Kay took us down the pitch from a break, put Kelvin in where he probably could have shot, but chose to put Garcia in, who then missed. Kelvin's got to shoot that, in my opinion, if he wants to be a starting striker in this league. You have to shoot that when that falls to you. It's not too far wide yet. That was a bigger issue there for me, but that's a confidence thing. And part of that comes from actually getting him service through the midfield. I completely agree with what you said about the second balls, and not needing to react to somebody else. But again, it speaks to attacking a line directly rather than trying to attack in between the lines, which is, I think, where this team is more dangerous.
So here's a couple of questions for you. So the first one, I'm picking up on a very popular line of thought here. If we go out and sign a striker, bear in mind this is Tuesday evening we're recording this. If we go out and get a striker who comes into the squad like I'm talking about a proper striker, I'm not going to mention names, but everyone knows what I'm talking about in terms of a proper number 9 fronting man. Does that solve all our problems?
I don't personally think so at this time, because I don't think that we're able to consistently create, when we have possession of the ball. We had 60% of the ball again in this game. But, Wing gets that ball. He's basically in Swindon when he receives the ball. He's got to start making his way up the field. He looks up, and what he's got is maybe a fullback, maybe a centre back, and then Savage and Fraser in this game were often all the way up the field. One of them was often all the way up the field, standing on the back line with like a winger and Kelvin. And I'm just like, can we please have some players in dynamic spaces to actually be able to play the ball to? So that is not, that's an issue with the build-up play, and that's then like taking too long to get through, for us to get to the attacking stage, at which point that attacker is surrounded by players. Now, if we want to, try and play some sort of different style, we start throwing the ball, over the back line and have the guy run in behind, then so I don't even know if that's like the case, because I think Kelvin could maybe do that too. I'm struggling with the idea that a new striker. I think that I've talked myself into it now. Actually,
I agree. I don't, and I said this on Saturday straight after the game. Up until the game on Saturday, I thought a new striker would be solve all our problems. But there are fundamental issues with the way that we're set up at the moment, and I don't think the players are that bad. I read someone going, "Oh, well, the players we brought in are worse." Well, we don't know they're worse because we haven't seen them play enough in a system that is suiting them. They were kind of saying, "Well, the level of quality, we've lost Nibs. We can't keep talking about Harvey Nibs anymore. Like his goals are gone."
You actually make a really good point.
Goals within that team. The goals are within that team. We've just got to find them. That's all it is.
Thinking about like those other players that have left, I guess that's the best way to change the, to kind of flip the argument is if Sam Smith is in this team, does the way in which the team is playing completely change, and they immediately become better? And I don't necessarily think that's the case, because I think that Hunt's second half of the season with Reading, while unspectacular, without Sam Smith, was was okay. It was okay going forward. Not great, but reasonable. So I don't necessarily think that. I guess that's a good question. Do you think if Sam Smith was in this team right now, would it solve?
Well,
the
no,
other
because
issues?
what's happened is the club in general, I guess the coaching staff, whatever, have gone, well, we're just going to play exactly the same system. We're just going to try and replace like for like and not evolve. There has to be.
Yeah.
So Noel Hunt picked up the mantle from Sellers. It was working. I disagree that it wasn't spectacular. I think it was to be able to keep that momentum going. And I think a lot of that was to do with, I say the love-in, but the relationship between fans and players and everyone just kind of going, F you, basically, like we're going to do this on our own. That's gone.
He got a lot of buy-in from players.
Yeah, that pressure and that adrenaline has kind of disappeared now because off the pitch, people are getting paid and people are less siege mentality and more picking faults in things, which is absolutely fine. And we'll come to that later on.
Some of them just weren't here. Like, what does Daniel Chirwa know about the what was going on here over the last year? I'm not saying maybe that might be a really bad example. I apologize. Yeah, but I
think that, I think there's been too many gambles on some of these players. I'm not. There's a lot of players that we brought in that I'm just not convinced by, and I'm not going to start picking them out at the moment because I don't think that's particularly fair because they've not been set up to succeed this season, in my opinion. But there has been no evolution of tactics. There's been no evolution of like looking at the spine of the team and maybe changing that a little bit. Can we play 3-5-2? Possibly. I put that out there over the weekend and someone went, well, we haven't got two strikers. Well, we have got two strikers. It's just that they're not, they're probably not the ones that we want. So there needs to be a willingness from the coaching side to go, okay, we're going to adapt a little bit and we're going to try this. My only issue with that is that we're 3 games into the season already and we've lost them. And nothing has really changed tactically from what we were doing last season with a different set of players. Yeah. If he then goes, hypothetically, right, tomorrow up in Bolton, we're going to go 3-5-2, we get beat 4-0, and then we lose the next 3 games, that kind of might be fine if they were the first 3 games playing that system. But then you're into 4, 5, 6 games on the bounce we've lost. So there's so many permutations now that I feel like we've almost backed ourselves into a corner to continue with 4-3-3, even though potentially those players that we've got can't do that or are unable to do that because of their playing personalities. I don't know.
I just don't think they're executing in the way that they were. I mean, it's a 4-3-3, sure, same as Sellers was a year ago, but it's not operating in the same way that one was. That one was aiming to move the ball between the back 5 quickly. So the back 5 here being the 4 defenders and wing, and it was trying to move between them. And remember, we moved away from the sort of wing going out to the right back from the first Sellers season. We moved more into a wing kind of staying in the middle, which he kind of still does now. He's just having to drop so deep. But we had this kind of idea where wing would be at the tip of this sort of 2-3 thing. And we would be trying to basically drop one of the 8s and then move around the corner very, very quickly and go and find another 8 who was in between the lines. That was often Ben Elliott, who could then drive, or if you got Charlie Savage, he could put a really nice ball down the line for the fullback to chase, or cross in, to the box, for someone to get on to the end of. So there were ideas about how we're going to do this, and again, now I just think it's just messy when you look up and there's just nobody there to actually play the ball to. So Reading end up in these sort of 3-on-3s down by the touchline or the sidelines so often. And so, even I think that there's 4-3-3 and there's 4-3-3, right? If the roles are not being properly coached into the midfielders, then they're not going to know what their roles are and they're not going to do them. I do think you're right about Fraser again in terms of personnel, though. I think that Ben Elliott is clearly the guy who should be starting in that. I would have him as the second person in my like in my midfield. Like he gets in ahead of the only person he doesn't get in ahead of is Wing for me. And then obviously there's a clamor for Kamari Doyle as well from some of what he's done, but I think he can play in a few different positions. But yeah, just like Elliot is the player who can like get in between the lines, turn and run. And yeah.
Do you? I guess the final question really, and this I hadn't thought about this really until I kind of reflected on Saturday, and obviously we talked a little bit about Des Williams coming in and him looking reasonably accomplished and strong and athletic.
You're calling him Des? Is that what he is?
Yeah, 100%. I'm going to call him Des. Yeah,
Des. Okay, all right, interesting.
Yeah, I think it's cooler.
Do you just not like Derek? Okay,
yeah, right. Fine, but like he just looks. I don't know. Des sounds cooler, doesn't it?
I remember seeing him for the last. Because obviously he played in the MLS for the last little while. I do because he's quite a memorable face. Des, I guess we're calling him Williams. So
we'll get a comment now going. Please don't do that. My name's Derek. Sorry, Derek.
Yeah.
But he seems like a cool guy, so hopefully he'll be all right with it. If of course he listens, which he definitely doesn't. The final question to you really is: do you think that the transfer policy at the moment is to sign what are classed as good players that don't necessarily fit this system, or do you think there is a conscious decision to sign these players to fit the system that the team has played for the last year and a bit?
This is what makes me a little bit concerned for Noel. Is that there's two things in there really, and they both make me concerned for Noel in different ways. Number one, I couldn't tell you what the system is really in terms of.
Yeah, you're right. I meant formation, I guess.
No, sure, no, but like you don't necessarily buy players for like just a formation, because like in theory they should be playing multiple formations in each like different phase of play. Like if we're playing a 4-3-3, then what does that look like in possession? Do we break into like a 3-box-3? Do we break into some sort of like 3-5-2 thing when we go forward? What does that look like in a quick transition? Do we try to get players out wide fast or what? So like whatever formation you're playing in, things change massively. The system is going to be like, do we invert the fullbacks? Do we send them on an overlapping run? Matty Jacob, by the way, I think is a really quality pickup, and whoever wants when Brennan get humming again, I think he's going to be a part of that, because he was all over the place on Saturday. Had more touches of the ball than Wing, and Ahmed certainly on the other side wasn't involved as much. But again, I think it's an individual just taking the game by the scruff of the neck, because that's what his managers told him to do pretty much, I think. I just think that like, and so that worries me. Not that worries me for Noel. For the second reason would be, I don't necessarily think that these players are just for Noel. The only thing that would make me think maybe is that I know that lots of them have had Stephen Hunt as an agent or something like that. But like from what I understand, he's just a relatively prominent agent in the lower leagues in England anyway.
There's no way that we're facing another Keir here. Like Stephen Hunt wouldn't stitch up his own brother, I'm just intrigued because, I read somewhere, saw somewhere that someone had described the transfer policy as beyond contempt, which I thought was a little bit fantasist, really. I thought it was a little bit dramatic and probably wasn't.
The problem is that people like me got too excited.
There's no one like you, mate. What are you on about? There's no one like you.
Wow, very kind. But people like me get too excited and they think we're going to finish second and things like that. And yeah, proper feels like I stacked that now, doesn't it? But like in any case, like and if I was there, like I know I'm quite optimistic, but like I imagine quite a lot of people were at least in the it should be a nice playoffs sort of season for us. And so this has been a really disappointing 3-game streak, and it's almost like a month of the season gone where we've just been absolutely naff. And not naff, like if you're going to be naff, I always think this with American football too, lose 4-3, like lose by like a big score, because that's much more fun. Don't go out there and play really dull attacking football and then concede a couple piddly goals and that's it for the afternoon. It's not entertaining. So I don't know. I would like to see some changes, but I think that if in the future a different manager does come in, they will definitely be able to work with these players to find a system, because I don't think that there necessarily is one right now that these players have been bought for. I think that I've been thinking about this as I've been going on today. Like, there's a part of me that like wants to go and try and find what the system is and try and like tactically analyze this right now, but it feels almost like a waste of time because it's so uncreative.
I think where I'm at, it comes in waves. So straight after the game on Saturday, I was really irritated with it, especially the way that we sort of finished and some of the gamesmanship we saw from Wimbledon, who I have to say were very, very good in spells. Like they were, I see all these comments about I shouldn't be losing at home to Wimbledon. Like, it's just nonsense. It's just absolute nonsense, because we know from experience now, third season in a row being in League One, that these teams are difficult to play against. Like, this is not.
And there's not that big of a gap between League Two and League One. And who are the team that are favoured to win the league? It's Stockport, who were in League Two, what, 2 years ago, 3 years ago?
Wickham have been quoted. They're down there as well. So, I don't think it's a million miles away. The problem is those miles have got to be here real quick, to be honest, because like we've got to pick up something just to calm everything down and just to remind the players that they can play. The issue as well is that there isn't, for me, I don't have the relationship with a lot of these players because I don't know them. And I don't know, and I don't mean like, hi mate, how are you, all that nonsense, but like the way they play, the commitment level, the style, what they're actually like. You mentioned Jacob, it's probably a fair shout. He didn't have a great game, I don't think, on Saturday at all. And I think a lot of people are already on his back, which I think is unfair. But we don't know these players, and we haven't seen their capabilities. And we talked last week with Phil about the Portsmouth game and how good that was. That was basically an academy team and a lot of players from last year, wasn't it? That's where that came in. So my thing is, it's very, very uncertain on the pitch at the moment. It's very, very up and down, and I'm kind of anxiously looking forward, if that's a complete contradiction, to the next game. But then when that next game comes in, I'm like, are we going to lose this? So I couldn't really tell you where I'm at the moment with it.
Can I give you some positives?
Stick to it. Yeah,
Can I give you, because like you mentioned Jacob there, and so I thought he did have a pretty reasonable game. I think there were things that he could have done better, but I think there were a lot of good flashes. And what he does well is that he moves the ball pretty directly and pretty quickly into the final third. Like, I think it was taking Reading forever to move the ball through the thirds on Saturday. So it's just so easy for Wimbledon to reset. So I think that Matty Jacob is a decent player. Created 4 chances, apparently. But, I'll have to, not sure I remember quite so many chances, but still, I think they just mean sort of opportunities to shoot. Let's call it that. Probably blocked. I think that Finn Burns is a good player. I think that Finn Burns, I think if you could have asked for, I don't think you could have gotten a better replacement at this level for Tyler Bindon. If you just plugged and played like what Tyler Bindon used to do, like pretty big guy, really confident on the ball, wins in the air most of the time. Finn Burns is doing all of that. I'm really quite pleased with how he's shaped up so far this year. Ahmed got beat for the goal, for the first goal, unfortunately, but I thought he was okay going forward other than that. So, good to see him not completely overblown, by the League One standard, and just needs to be better from that cross, really. And then I guess the only other thing I'll say is I thought Chirwa looks like he's got something about him in a fast break for sure. I think like if you're situations like opponent's corner or something like that, Chirwa seems like quite a decent asset. Like I really like the way in which he engaged both defenders in the run that led to the Garcia miss, but he kind of had a couple of little jinks either side, and he sort of engaged the defender into thinking he was going to go either way, which bought Kelvin again a little bit of time that I think he maybe should have shot with. So just wanted to put some positives out there, I guess. Chirwa, Burns, and I quite like the look of Jacob.
Well, look, we go again today. If you're traveling up to Bolton, this comes out on Wednesday. I do this every week. Why do I say this nonsense?
Where are you traveling to in Bolton? The Tough Sheet Stadium.
Yeah, exactly.
Enjoy that. Yeah, I'm just going to enjoy that.
What? I don't know why I do that, because it's almost like I imagine that this is coming out live. Just absolute nonsense. It's not. So we play Bolton today because the earliest you're going to listen to this is what, like 6 UK time on a Wednesday.
Yeah.
And then we go to Wickham. So we're going to do the preview later on. The mailbag is thin. It's thinner than.
It's sad. It's a sad and dowered, thin mailbag. That's what it is. It's a depressed mailbag.
There's one big fat question which we're going to get to first. So we're going to have a short break, and then we're going to do that. The mailbag coming up. All right, welcome to the mailbag on episode 428. Had to check my numbers there of the Tilehurst podcast. Just a reminder that we've had some stonkers over the months. Really, we've had Robbie Savage on, Harrison Gilks, which is one of my which is one of my most favourite pods.
I liked that one. That was a good one.
We've had Rob Coig on.
Indeed.
We've had Phil, new media guy on. We've had the Amazons on.
Here's one that I think would be good if you're thinking about systems and how teams play and all these things. The James Oliver Pierce one from a year and a half ago now. James is a big old football nerd, and love it. So yeah, that one's actually a really good. If you want to hear how a 4-3-3 is meant to operate, there's some good stuff in there. James is an in possession coach, so
having a very, very tough time up in Yorkshire, those two at the moment, I tell you.
Yeah.
Really up against it at that club.
There was a really good Jonathan Wilson article, I think in The Guardian this week about Sellers up there. Or maybe it was on his Substack, I don't know. But just Google Jonathan Wilson Sellers. And
good writer.
Yeah, very good writer. And there's quite a lot of nods to us and the time that Sellers had at Reading in that particular article, just because it informs a lot of how Sellers has, gotten to that point. So, worth checking out.
Well, they're all available as a back copy, whatever you want to call it. We talked to Rob when he first joined, really. So we're about 3 and a bit months in to his reign. I've got a question of my own for you, Ross, but we'll go to Steve Rex first of all.
Okay.
I feel that the owners have come in with good intentions, but are finding it harder than expected. I think that is one of the most sensible points I've read on this whole ownership thing. Okay. The reason I think that is because I think they thought it might have been easier than it actually is. I don't really know how to articulate why, and I'm hoping you can help me out with that, Ross. But it is not, I think, going the way that anyone thought it might do in terms of the positivity and the cohesiveness and the togetherness that we saw last year with the fan base and the players and the people at the club who weren't connected to Die Young, basically. So he's come up with that statement, Steve, and I think that that's pretty on the ball for me. 3 and a bit months in, where are you at with the ownership performance, I guess, Ross?
Yeah, I think there have been a lot of good noises and a lot of good movements, to be honest, in the first 3.5 months. I think that it's correct to say that maybe didn't realize just how big it is, because there's a difference between Wickham and Reading in terms of fan expectations and things like that. Now, I'm not saying that wouldn't ever change. Football is cyclical, and let's say maybe in 20 years time, like, everyone will think of Wickham as a bigger club than Reading. I don't think so, but there's a lot of there's generations of people in their 20s, people a little bit younger too, who have grown up with Reading being a pretty reasonable club in terms of expectations, that competes, towards the higher end of the championship, middle of the championship. So, that is just in terms of footballing performance, a bigger club than Wickham has been over the past 20 to 30 years. And so, yeah, I think there's some sort of level of this is a bigger club, and there's an understanding that needs to be there with that. But I also think that things are so linked to what happens on the football field. It was kind of like the the death knell of like Ed Woodward's career, I remember at Manchester United, was that he said that like what happens on the pitch doesn't affect what happens commercially or like whatever with Man U. And obviously he was wrong. He was very wrong. Like, as you know, they
very wrong.
and so I think that it's really hard to maintain any kind of positivity when you're 3 games in the tank for the first 3 games of the season. Again, I think that there's possibly coaching things going on that are more to do with that. I see some things happening like there was this AI thing today, and I'm not the biggest AI guy. I don't love AI, but what it does say to me at least is that they understand the importance of data, and they want to try to like they are trying to look for small like sporting differences, and they have like ideas that touch everywhere in the club. And so I think that, you know, it's early on. The last thing I'll say is that like I would look at Todd Bowley as a good example of somebody who came into English football, didn't necessarily understand the size of the thing that he purchased in terms of the meaning to a lot of people. And I think that is something that I personally, as a Brit who lives in America, think that Americans struggle with just a little bit, is that they can see that these Premier League clubs in football and everything is this big, incredible thing that has the potential to drive money and revenue, and, you know, success is a really important thing and performance is a really important thing. Americans are all about athletic performance and all that kind of stuff. What they don't necessarily fully understand is that these clubs are so deeply tied into the communities, and they have feeling about them that is so deeply tied to who you are as a person, as well as, you know, like it's almost like, you know, there are a lot of people in England who are like club over country and stuff like that because they feel more closely tied to their place of birth or where they live and things. And these are clubs that started in like a cricket club in Sheffield or a random like schoolhouse in Reading or whatever 150 years ago. That's the thing that I think they sometimes struggle to understand. And so I would say look at the things that have been done in terms of actual achievements. I think that the transfer window, despite the performances on the field, has been pretty good. I think that there have been some important noises. Bowley was mocked for, you know, almost like a year, 2 years after taking over Chelsea and doing all these kinds of wild things that seem a little bit odd to English fans. You know, 2 years later, he's got a good manager, probably the, you know, best midfield in the Premier League and a Club World Cup. So I think it's very early to be judging the ownership at this stage, I would say.
I said 18 months for me. So
okay.
You know, I think I understand the frustration, and I was frustrated on Saturday because I'm always one of those people that it's more about actions than what you say, which is ironic because I'm currently co-hosting a podcast and I have done for 2 years. But like,
we do say a lot of nonsense.
We do, yeah. But like, you know, I really look at how people behave and the actions, and I just think if you are going out there and you are saying things like toilets are going to be better, food offering, all this kind of stuff, what I experienced firsthand on Saturday, it was probably the worst I've seen it, if that's possible. You know, the toilets were still horrific where I sit, and I'm not expecting, you know, gold-plated chains on the toilets and, you know, your Reynolds that flush automatically. I'm not looking for that. What I am looking for is just a basic level of hygiene that just isn't there at the moment.
I thought you were going to say a bidet when you started with a B. What I am looking for
classical shower as well
is a light stream of water shot directly between my arse cheeks.
The toilets still aren't. The taps in the toilets still don't work properly. So when you turn them on, they shoot everywhere, which is a hazard in itself because you're not able to wash your hands properly. So then you go to the hand gel. There's no hand gel there. There was no soap in the first 2 soap dispensers, and very rarely or barely anything in the third one. The food as well, like you know, everyone knows I love the hot dogs, right? I don't know why, I just do, and I need to eat less of them. But like, someone was assembling them from a box of bread rolls that had clearly been very much in the fridge, possibly even the freezer, or half defrosted, and then putting the sausage into the bun without gloves on and then shoving it into a bag. That's, for me, that's quite significant because that's just basic stuff, and that wasn't happening last year. You know, that wasn't there. And the problem for me is that if no one had said anything about these things improving, I'd be like, okay, well, we're still in this place, fine, not fine, but you know what I mean. The point about it is that if these things are being advertised and they've said to be done and they're not, that's a massive issue for me, because that's like, not only have you not done those things, you said you were going to do those things, and you told everyone who'd listened that you were going to do those things, and they've not been done. So that for me feeds into an overall, okay, well, where's the trust level here? Where's the respect level in terms of you saying all these things and they're not being done? And I'm not holding him responsible for that as an owner. What I am saying is that the chain of command in terms of communicating the importance of that and saying these things and getting them done is vital. And if those things aren't done, how does that leave the playing squad? Which, as you said, we all know is the only thing that is really going to get, fans through the door.
I wasn't sure how you could do this.
If we go to Premier League,
you've tied the playing squad to frozen hot dogs.
No, but do you know what I mean? It's true though, isn't it?
Yeah. The little things all the way down. Yeah.
I don't expect it being a Premier League. That's nonsense. I would settle for being a mid to high end championship team for the next 6 years. I would love that, because that's consistency. That's a bit of progress. That rebuilds the brand of Reading. That brings people back through the door. That puts people in the stadium. That puts money back in the Tilehurst shop and all the rest of it. It helps us out with the podcast. All this kind of stuff. But when you are constantly saying these things happen, like it just. And I thought the AI thing today, as interesting as it was just a really poorly timed piece of media. And that is the club's decision to do that. There is very little, interest in the fan base for that stuff at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Telling you that now.
I think
the only thing people care about is signings that are going to improve the team and getting 3 points. That's it.
Yeah, I think you timing. You're right. Like you talk about that kind of stuff in September, don't you? And you do it in a week when there's like nothing else going on, in the week. There's no cup games or anything. So it's like, okay, we want to focus on some other, or you do it in the international break and you filter it as content through the international break because what else are you going to do? I think that, from what we've heard from everyone in the club is that, the owner likes to talk about what he wants to do and all these kinds of things. And things come out occasionally that can lead to disappointment because, the line I always like to say in my head is under promise and over deliver. And you don't want to come in and like tell people it's going to be rubbish. It's going to be blah, blah, blah. You're not going to like it at all. The water's going to go all over you. The soap dispenser doesn't work. Like you're not going to come in and say these things. But, I think that I think you bringing it to the stadium immediately, like makes it easier for me to understand because I see everything from the media side. And that is very much the image that the club wants to put out. But you obviously are if you're going to the games, you're obviously able to see, you're wandering around, you bought your ticket, you're doing whatever you want in the ground within reason. So, yeah, I think, tasty. But, I don't know.
It's tricky. And
I think it's tricky. And I think it's early. I'll say all this. I still think it's early. I still think it's really, really early, and like there's always going to be like a mix of on-field and off-field things. And I do also think that most people would admit that if we won the game 3-0, people would be less bothered about the taps going everywhere.
Exactly right.
Yeah,
exactly. So. That the performance on the pitch outweighs absolutely everything. Yeah, absolutely everything for me. I'm a kind of person to caveat all this with I hate transfer rumours. I can't bear it. Just tell me when that player is wearing a Reading shirt and they're in the squad and they're playing. I couldn't care less about rumours in the nose. It's all a waste of time. It's all a waste of energy for me because all I want to do is see the player in a shirt and see how well they perform. That's it. So I'm probably slightly exception to the rule there, but I don't want talk. I just want actions. I just want things to be done properly. That's it.
Yeah.
So.
I think that's well said. By the way, anyone who thought that we were being too friendly to the club, having the media gown and everything last week, yeah, do one. We just spent, but like that was very Tilehurst then. Like I came in with some defense, and you were, like, nah, screw them. Like there's going to be different opinions, and especially through these, they're making their first impressions right now.
But
like,
but one of the bright sparks, I think of this whole thing as being Phil and his media team.
Yeah.
Like, and I get where he's coming from. It's frustrating for him as well, because obviously when they put out this fantastic content, they want good responses. Like a classic was Only the Poets. Like I don't personally like Only the Poets music. Like it's okay, but it's not my go-to. But having them on a stage is a big thing. Like it's a massive thing. And everyone's like, can you play up front? Like, it must be pretty demoralizing if you're putting that content out all the time and people are just absolutely savaging it. No one cares about this stuff. Well, I would argue that they do, because actually there might be some fans of Only the Poets in Reading. They might just go to the game to watch them beforehand. Do you know what I mean? So it's same with when the Amazons played, at the end of last year. Like that was a massive thing, and people got a free gig out of it, basically. So it's really, really difficult for them. And Phil and Ryan and Luke are fantastic blokes. They really, really are. And I'm not just sat here saying this. Like they are brilliant, and they've
not sure about that, Ryan. He's
Ryan can get lost, but they're working really hard. They're working really, really hard, as a lot of other people are in the club. And I just think, it's affecting them as much as it is affecting us in some respects, because they need that win to be able to push more stuff and push the good content and get the good interaction. So it's really, really tricky when the team aren't performing. And there have been some bright spots. Of course there have. There have been some really positive things. But my personal thing is always just do it. Don't talk about it. Just get it done.
Yeah.
Because then it just raises...
I used to work in tech support. My first ever job was tech support for an internet company. And if the internet was out, you could do whatever you wanted. No one cared. Like it was like I'm making fun of your podcast
retrospectively sacked.
But like like it's just, there's nothing you could do that was really gonna like soothe people when like their internet was down or whatever. Like a person in pain cannot be not in pain or whatever. Like they're going to need to be frustrated for a bit. I don't know, I'm kind of all over the place now. I don't think that the start to the season is to do with the owner. I think that this appears to be an owner who is going to want to talk more, and occasionally they're going to say things that might frustrate some of us, because they seem to be promising something, often with limited timeline on it, other than soon. But I think there's a lot worse you could do with owners that talk too, and so kind of sticks us somewhere in the middle right now. It's not Mr. Kuig's Reading FC, like it's Mr. Marinakis's Nottingham Forest, so could be worse in terms of having a talking owner. I think, as I said at the start of this, because this has been a weird pod for me now, I've come out defending the owners, but absolutely
I'm not
anti
Coig at all. I'm not, definitely 100% not anti him at all. So you don't need to defend him against me. It's just
no. I'm not saying it against you. I'm just telling the fans. I'm sort of slagging off Kuig here. Not slagging. I'm not. I was defending the owners, but digging in on the coach, which is probably quite Ross, to be honest. So maybe
but this is what we do, right? And this is sidetracking it massively. But this is what we come on here to do. And people will be listening to this now, going, "Just shut up, the pair of you. Like everything's great and it'll all be fine." And that's awesome. Like if that is your viewpoint, that's great. And this is why we ask for contributions all the time. We've had so many new writers over the last few weeks to chip in, and they've been good articles. I haven't agreed with all of them, but it's interesting to see that viewpoint, and this is what it's about, and actually there isn't, when you step back, and I know people will be like, "Wow, shut up! Don't be one of those people that goes, oh, we've got a club and you should be grateful." Like I'm not one of those. I want things to be better all around. But you can kind of bring yourself back from the brink a little bit and go, what are the positives here? Like you said with the performances, that there will be some positives, and it's the same with the other stuff. Like I said, like the media stuff driving that has been absolutely fantastic. The Bearwood thing was just a brilliant masterstroke to do that. And it was honestly watching the club for 30 plus years, that Bearwood day was one of the best days I've ever had as a Reading fan, because it was just brilliant to see everyone down there, and the club engaging with everybody. It was just amazing, and that stuff's great. But it's just all the other bits as well. Like, it's never ever going to be perfect. There is no club in the land where any owner is universally loved by their fans. Just doesn't happen.
No.
But there are things that can be helped to improve that, and I think he's taken a lot of stuff on the chin. I think he's catching an awful lot of strays, which he doesn't need to as an owner. I think there needs to be a bit of a cooling off period now in terms of everything that's been going on. That's my perception of it. But ultimately, we need to win games. We'd won the first 3 games 2-0, 2-0, and 2-1, and we were top of the table or whatever. None of this matters.
Yeah. Win games and a lot can drift into the background, right? Like, yeah. So,
we've kind of shot the mailbag to pieces, so we'll finish off with an actual mailbag question.
Thanks
for that, Steve. You've set us off on a massive tangent there. I just to recap, I fully agree with you, Steve. You said, I feel that the owners have come in with good intentions, but are finding it harder than expected. I agree with that.
Yeah, I think Steve summed it up better than we did.
Words. God. We could have just done that and gone, yep, correct. Next.
Correct. Good.
The final entry in the mailbag this week is Jamie. Jamie started writing for us, wrote a piece last week, so that's out there. Or started writing for us again. I think I said this last week, but whatever. How much better would Kamara be in the middle? That's a Ross question.
If the team wanted to play in some kind of way that would benefit him, then maybe it would work, but he wouldn't work in the middle as currently operates, because his job would be, if he was on one side, go and join the little melee of players that ends up down ball moves one side, go join the little melee of players that happens down the touchline. Ball goes the other side, go and join the freaking back line with the winger and the striker for some reason, and try to win a header against a 6'5" defender. So yeah, but I will just say Kamara this season has been improved on last season, and I think is one of those players who can play there. But again, I banged on about 4-2-2 with players who are not technically strikers a couple of weeks ago. And I think that Kamari Doyle is another one who could do that if he needed to. I think Kamara is just one of these modern footballers who is capable of playing in a lot of different positions. And yeah, wide might honestly be one of his worst positions. He's much better as a half space winger if he is forced to do that. Anyway.
If we haven't already lost a bunch of listeners this morning, whatever, I keep doing it in this episode, I would go on record and say that I don't understand the hate that Kamara gets.
You were not a big Kamara fan last season. I quite like Kamara.
I'm not a big Kamara fan, but I don't understand the absolute vitriol that he gets. I don't get it. Is he in my top 6 players? No. Is he the worst player on our team? No. He's just there, isn't he? And
he's been around a long time.
But I don't understand why it's always his fault. I don't understand the absolute hatred that people have when he comes on. I don't get it. He's not one of my favorites, you're right, but
he's just, it's weird because he scored a couple of goals, but he often scores goals when we're already winning. So I don't think he's ever done anything that is massively memorable to Reading fans, although Sim really likes Kamara, so maybe he disagrees.
I think it's actually Sim though, isn't he? He's not come up with a valid reason as to why he's...
Do you think he gets more hate than Marco Mani is getting right now, though? Because and that might be more linked to the striker situation. You think Kamara is? Because I'm not on Twitter.
Yeah, I do. I think the pair of them at the moment are massive scapegoats. Yeah, I do. And I we could do a pod on Marco Mani at the moment, but
give me.
I don't.
Sorry, I was going to say, give me while I'm asking your opinions on what's going on socials. Do you think that the fans are more thinking there's something wrong with the players or the coach right now?
Definitely.
Definitely. Yeah. Okay. So it's not, I would say there's a few guys that you could call scapegoats, and spoilers. Earlier in the pod, I said that Wing managed a really nice pass into the middle along the ground, and then the person who received it in the box sicked up all over his feet rather than controlling it. Spoilers, that was Marco Mani.
Based on the last game, when he came on, he didn't seem massively on the ball, metaphorically and physically. Armani, this is. I think it's very, very difficult with the manager situation at the moment because as I said earlier, if he doesn't change things or look to change things tactically, then it's going to be very difficult moving forward, especially if we continue to lose games. I don't think anyone is specifically going after the players as a group. There is a little narrative, as I mentioned earlier, about these players are worse. I can't really get him, as I said, and I keep repeating myself. I'm really sorry, guys. This is one of those pods that just keeps going around. But I can't say that because I've not seen enough of them, and I don't think anyone's seen enough of them to go, this person is a bad player, or this guy isn't what we need, or whatever. There is still a quality in the team, and there is still a vibe in the team that wants to succeed. We saw that against Portsmouth. I don't want to hear people going, oh, yeah, we beat Portsmouth reserve team. It doesn't matter because we still had a lot of confidence in that game and we still did really well. But the problem is when you look at pre-season as a collective and you look at the first 3 games as a block, it's very, very difficult, I think, to judge these players at the moment because they're just up against it from almost the first minute. So I think definitely to answer your question, it's more on the side of the management and coaching issue is the problem at the moment. I don't see a lot of collective, the players are rubbish. So remember when we went to Leyton Orient a few seasons ago, and then all the fans were having a go at the whole team. I think there was a collective. These players are crap, basically. Like these are not good players, and that was into September, I believe. But I don't see that with this group. There's just no understanding between them at all, and that for me is a coaching thing.
Yeah, a lot of Marco Mani's goals and shots and things from.
I love that. Anyway, back to that specific individual.
No. Like just while we're thinking about it, I'm just like, again, like from setup, like a lot of his goals and shots were from like him coming quite far back when the team were in their own half or whatever, and then he would be a really decent asset for sort of like he would hang out around the halfway line or whatever, and then instead of the ball being played to him, it would be played behind him and behind the defenders for him to run onto. And he's quite big and he's quite fast. So like it actually worked out quite nicely. Every single thing he gets is, can you win a header against a guy who's all over your back, basically? So the team is not, we can't say if these players are good or bad because they've been asked to do one thing, which doesn't work. So yeah. Anyway, I'm going to stop talking about that now because I could go on about it forever.
We can Kamara play in the middle? Yes or no?
Sure, but I wouldn't because we've got better options. For Crawley, maybe.
I really hope people watch the YouTube version of that because that was really, really funny. That was just a kind of a question equivalent of a shrug.
Yeah.
Whatever. Whatever. We're gonna move on to the preview. Hopefully we'll keep that nice and succinct and we'll come up with something that's vaguely coherent for you. So we'll see in a bit. Right, final part of episode 428 of the Tilehurst podcast. No idea why I put emphasis on the 8, but just thought it would be a good thing to do.
Are you practicing for tomorrow? Are you on the?
Getting for tomorrow. I know. Well, they only tend to give me the away Northern games at the moment, so happy days. Love the North of England, me. Love it.
Yeah,
don't mind Bolton actually. Great stadium, good football in town.
Yeah,
relatively easy to get to, long but straightforward. Yeah, I don't have an issue with Bolton.
No, nice it's on my list as well. I'd like to go. I didn't like the loss. That was the worst loss of last season, actually. The Bolton away game. I think we lost 5-2, and that awful Dion Charles guy scored a hat trick. And he just bothers me.
That awful guy.
He just bothers me. He looks like a toilet brush, and he talks like one too. Anyway,
right. Last time out, drew to Barnsley away. John McAtee, 86th minute, get out of jail free card. Difficult to place Bolton at the moment in terms of where they are expected, in inverted commas, to be. They are all right. They're kind of mid-table.
They're 17th.
Are they?
Yeah. The only loss they have so
What,
far
13th?
is week 1,
The 13th?
Stockport. Yeah,
You said
17th.
17th.
What did I say?
You said
17th.
17th. The 13th.
Oh, are
That's
they?
mid-table.
I've got them down as 7. All right, whatever. Well,
Shambles, man. They're currently on 4 points, so 4 more than us. They're going okay. They're all right. They have. Is it fair to say they've revamped their squad? I guess it is. They had a lot of goings out. Obviously, Schumacher came in towards the end of last season. Jettisoned a lot of the older pros and the players that he thought couldn't care less, and got rid of them.
I'm not over the 17th, 13th thing. Sorry. They are 17th. What are you talking about? It's on the BBC Sport website.
Is it?
Yeah. They've had a rubbish start to. No, they haven't. They've won one, they've lost one, and they've tied one. Like it's a very average start to the season. Sorry, listeners, I've sent Ben into.
Yeah, because you're right. Okay, fine. Sorry.
Yeah.
When I looked at this earlier, they were 13th, but because games are going on right now, Ross.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm up to
right.
date. As we've spoken about on this podcast, I'm up to date. I'm live, me coming into your eardrums. Anyway,
Yes,
Bolton.
they're 17th now because they're a game less than everybody else because they play tomorrow against us. Today, whatever, you know what I mean? It doesn't matter where they're on the table. Stuff it. No one cares about tables 3 games into the season. We're definitely not bottom anyway, so no one cares. What so annoyed to throw my pencil now. What would you do with the team? Okay, no, hold on.
No.
What would you keep the team the same as it was against Wimbledon?
Well, I think if Paddy Lane is available. Okay, so no. Firstly, no. Even though like it's Bolton and like they're in theory a better team than Wimbledon, like more dangerous going forward. No, get Elliott or Doyle into that lineup right away. Like we need probably for Fraser right now. But like I think there's a. I mean, like there's a chance at some point we'll see a midfield without Savage, Ben. It may well happen. Or, as I've been saying throughout, some sort of 4-4-2, increasing the number of midfielders a little bit.
It won't be 4-4-2.
I'm telling you, something just a little bit different, but it might look like
when
I see it in possession or out of possession for the first time, I'm going to send you a picture because it is going to happen because this team is not meant to play in a 4-3-3.
So can I just so we can get to everything?
Yeah,
you said Doyle or Elliott. I would say Elliott because you know what
Elliott. Yeah, and Doyle. I do want to start seeing coming on earlier in games and having 100%. More chances to affect things because he's clearly got something about him and he's a little bit different. Yeah. The way in which he can manipulate a ball is quite interesting. Like he's clearly a very technical footballer. Very good with the outside of his foot. I noticed. So
I'm going to do something for the first time ever with you. I'm going to read out the previous team's lineup, and you're going to say yes if they start against Bolton and no if they don't, and who comes in.
Okay. I mean, I can tell you just the one.
No, I want to do it like this. It's going to be because we're going to draw it out. And
no, we're going to do it like this. Yeah.
Right. Number 1, Pereira.
Yes. Yeah. Get through these ones.
See how this works?
Yeah, I see it. No, Abrafer comes back in. Okay. Abrafer was decent again. Abrafer's not the issue.
Stickland?
No, loses his place to Derek Williams. I think the coaching staff. Des Williams, sorry. I think that's actually something we haven't talked about yet, but I think Stickland's done okay to start the season, prove that he's decent depth piece. Should be a substitute for most of the rest of this season. I think when he came off just after he'd been booked for a play that I really felt sorry for him, like where he conceded the free kick that led to the second goal, and he did it by making a mistake and then getting himself booked. And I thought, and then he got taken off by the coaching staff. And I thought, yeah, it's about time. Like he needs a bit of a break now. Stickland's gone for Des.
Burnsy?
Yeah, Burnsy stays, as does Jacob.
I haven't got there yet.
Because I'm sorry, I'm trying, listeners.
Jacob?
Yes.
Fraser, that's annoying. We've already talked about Fraser. Okay. Wing.
Yeah, he stays.
Savage.
Yes, I'll keep Savage.
Dan Kay.
Yes, but on the left side if Paddy Lane is ready.
Long Kelvin.
Yes.
Garcia.
No, I would drop Garcia. I would stick Daniel Kay over on the left side, and I would put Paddy Lane on the right side. I'm quite happy with Daniel Kay so far, especially in terms of like how we are playing right now and what he has to work with. He actually might be one of the players who becomes less effective if more of a system comes in, because he seems like a player who thrives on chaos a little bit.
Yeah, true.
But I would keep him in the lineup.
Okay, so you are making 4 changes with the Brafer, Williams, Elliott, and Lane all coming in. The only question might be if Lane is fit or not.
Basically, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I don't think that's unreasonable. So we keep the same system in 4-3-3 and we see how that goes. I'm happy with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm happy with them.
I think that the best Reading team that will develop over the course of the season probably involves Kamari Doyle. But I'm not 100% sure where that is just yet. And again, I'm not 100% sure that this formation is how we will finish the season. But again, formation is just how you line up, how you defend, out of possession, and things change. So
quick word on Ahmed. I would agree with bringing a Brafer back in. And the reason being is that there is no urgency at the moment to rush Ahmed.
Yeah.
So
good point.
He keeps chipping away at his first team appearances, comes on a sub, maybe like he's already done the hard part in terms of winning people over with both. I say winning people over, but you know what I mean, kind of leaving an impression. So the Spurs game was very, very good. So much so that Son had to go to America to get away from him.
Right.
The Portsmouth game was very, very good as well. So there are real, significant positives with that player and the attributes that he brings. I just don't think, and you raised the point about Stickland as well, there is no urgency to rush these in terms of just we're going to get getting football out of you. We're going to milk every bit of football you've got this year out of you. There's no need to do that, particularly when you've got a League Cup game against Wimbledon a week today.
That's what I was just going to say. That's what I was just going to say.
Games as well, against Swindon in a couple of weeks' time and all the other ones. So, as I've always said, one of the positives of being in this league is that there are more cup games and there's more opportunities for those fringe players to play, coupled with the fact there's going to be a lot more, so we're told, under 21 games at the stadium, which again I think is a real positive, playing in front of home fans, albeit less and less, but there's more opportunities to impress and get your name out there. So I would agree with those changes.
I think that like you say, with the Wimbledon game coming up, what better game than what better opportunity to show that there's been some progress since the last game. But yeah, for me, Stickland and Ahmed, that's the next game they should start, is the EFL Cup second round.
Good to talk to you as always.
Yeah, there's good debate this week, but and it's funny, at least it's about football for the most part. I mean, I know we had a bit of a chat about the owners too, but
but they're not going anywhere, are they? So we can, we can have, it's early to have it, but there is a discourse that surrounds the club at the moment in terms of, 3.5 months is an appropriate amount of time, I think, to start looking at
a business quarter.
Exactly right. We can have that conversation, but it's not like, well, where's the money coming from, or which bill's not going to be paid? And there were people that would go, well, it's just the basics. It is, but they're basics that we've not had, and the staff haven't had, and the players haven't had. So nothing is ever going to be perfect. You're right. It has been a good chat. I hope people listening have enjoyed it anyway. There's not much else to say, really.
No. Bin it off. Let them go. They've been good to us. Listen to the ads.
Listen to the ads. Watch some football. Support Reading soccer. All that stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Have a good rest of it's your evening now, isn't it? Early evening.
It is. Yeah. I'm gonna shout out the lad who's in Portland again, because there was someone a few weeks ago, right, who said he was in Portland. So I just shout out. I'm wearing my Portland Zoo t-shirt today. This is
what is in Portland Zoo?
This is the soccer bar that I go to. This is where I watch games. So it's fun. It's a good spot.
It's called Portland Zoo.
It's called the Portland Zoo. That's right. Yeah. But it's not actually a zoo. So, but if you're ever in Portland, come on by. Come have a drink, watch a game.
I'm not deliberately copying you, but I want to shout out Alex Lovell, who always writes and does articles as well. He did have a question, which I think we've covered, Alex, mate. I think we have around what would you do differently. I think we've kind of covered that. If we haven't, it's not a shocker. We know that. So, like,
I'd dye my hair pink and become a Palermo fan. That's what I'd do.
Yeah, exactly. But he is an avid listener. He contributes. He writes a lot of decent articles for us as well. Some really good articles. So check them out. He's not on social media, which I think is probably a positive thing. It's quite rare these days, but it's a positive thing. Not because he's a bad guy, but just because it's quite refreshing to not have someone that's on social media.
Yeah.
So check those out. But really appreciate you chipping in, and we will get you back on the pod, Alex, 100%, because there's going to be a lot of them this season. Going to be a lot of pods to talk about, a lot of football. So see you later, Ross. Have a good. Whatever.
See you later. Good one.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody. We will see you next time on episode 429 of your Tilehurst podcast. Come on, you Oz.